You guys are crazy!
You're an animal! Get a job!
To say something like that to myself and all of my colleagues is way out of line. It's way out of line. It's way out of line.
Regular order, Mr.
Way out of line.
Regular order.
That's okay, but it's okay, right?
That is not how it
It's
goes.
okay, right?
You hold yourself accountable before you talk about
Hold
Washington,
myself
D.C.
accountable.
Mr. Tlaib.
Washington,
Hold
D.C.
your
out
own
of your
self
mouth.
accountable. How
Keep
about
it out of
that?
your mouth.
Hold your own
I'm
self
trying,
accountable.
Mr.
How about
What happens when a congresswoman known for outrage runs into a man who deals only in facts? What you're about to see isn't just another heated exchange. It's a collision between emotion and reason, fantasy and reality. Rashida Tlaib walked into that room to lecture everyone about fascism and feelings. Byron Donalds walked in with data, logic, and a patience that would make a saint proud. The result? Chaos, laughter, and a brutal reminder that shouting doesn't make you right. It just makes the truth louder. Before we dive in, drop a comment below while where are you watching from tonight? Now, let's see what happens when a performance meets precision on the House floor.
You know, I think it's also really important to understand, like, the incredible kind of slanderous, like, defamation. I don't know what to call it. They're just burying Washington, D.C. You just heard them speak about our nation's capital in that way, in a way that I feel very much like that's not what I see. I see people walking around with their families, people enjoying time to see these beautiful, incredible, beautiful monuments and everything. And there's a pride here too. And so I just want to bring the DC residents into this committee because I feel like they are being made invisible. And this really ugly picture that is not reflective. And I'm from Detroit. I've seen it happen to my city, and it's despicable in a way that I feel like really goes up against our values. You know, one of the things that I know in every abuse of power that, we let President Trump and the administration get away with in D.C., it will be replicated. It will be expanded across the country, and it is going to tear apart our communities. You know, Mr. Jackson, I talked to you about a little bit about this, but I think it's important to understand that we do have a mental health crisis, that we have a housing crisis, affordability crisis. Can you police any of those away?
No.
You can't police away homelessness. And the way they talk about our homeless neighbors is no wonder there's violence increasing towards homeless neighbors. I see it already, the brutality of it. When we see housing costs go up, when we see, again, the lack or dismissiveness of the mental health crisis that we continue to grow. And it's not just this administration, and the previous administrations as well. No one has moved with the urgency that is needed. Just last week, the committee approved over a dozen bills regarding Washington, D.C. And, I'm just curious. Criminalize children. My colleague from Boston talked about this. It basically interfered with legislation already passed by the local government. Was anyone on this panel consulted? Any of you? Raise your hand if you were consulted on any of these bills. Yeah.
We were not.
One of the things that, AG, I've been listening to you. One of the bills actually eliminates your position completely. What effect would that have? Completely eliminating your position in regards to be able to do the job that you do to protecting all the families in Washington, D.C.
We'll start with the fact that more than 70% of the residents of the District of Columbia overwhelmingly voted for having an independent elected Attorney General.
That's right.
And that's a recognition of the fact that when an Attorney General is directly accountable to the people, directly responsive to the people, we are much better at doing our job in terms of addressing housing affordability and conditions in slumlords, seniors and consumers who are being scammed, addressing the issues that are most important to D.C. residents, because I am accountable to them.
I read wage theft is an issue, workplace discrimination. There's a number of issues that need to be addressed, and they're not going to address that. They want to paint you all as this ugly, dark, all just out in the street. The way it's just unbelievable because they all live here. I don't see it. I don't see what they see. I don't understand why we're allowing that to happen, because I actually think it's going to hurt our communities. People are going to look at Washington, D.C. folks in a way that I think is going to be very painful, but also, I don't know, Mr. Jackson, I heard the stories. People didn't leave their homes. They weren't leaving their homes. Businesses didn't see people coming into. I mean, that's what we want in our nation's capital. Stay in your house. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. Stay fearful. It's unbelievable that my colleagues continue again to eject this narrative and this rhetoric in regards to it. But I think it's important, Mr. Chair, just like in D.C., home rule was won out of Black freedom struggle in the fight for civil rights. We can't be passive right now. So nobody over there should take anything we say like so personally as if we're attacking them. No, we're attacking a process. We're not attacking people here. And I think it's really important. We need to stand up against this fascist takeover. That's not a bad word. It's a fact. And here in D.C. and across the country, it is so incredibly important, Mr. Chair, that this committee does not allow rhetoric that defames or paints Washington, D.C. in a way that you all haven't really truly seen. You're just reading it. No, you're just reading it or something off of some.
Will the gentlelady yield to a question?
Yeah, I think it's really important.
Will the gentlelady yield?
No, I don't yield. I don't even have time. I can tell you.
Your time's expired.
It is expired, but
Tlaib,
Mr. Chair, but you all live here, and you're not telling people the beautiful parts that you do see in our nation's capital. And no, it's just wrong how we're doing it.
Chairman, I think it's insane that the gentlelady doesn't have an argument, but she's going to refer to me and some of my colleagues.
Mr. Donalds.
We were from the Third Reich. This is insane.
You're going to look at 14, 15-year-olds as a bunch of criminals?
It's insane.
Oh,
Do I look like a member of the Third Reich to you, Ms. Tlaib?
Please.
Is that what I look like to you?
You're the one taking your voting card.
Is that what you think? Is that what you think? Is that what you think?
No, that's unethical.
I think it's radical and I think it's insane. And I'll respect everything that you say. But to say something like that to myself and a lot of my colleagues is way out of line. It's way out of line. It's way out of line.
Regular order, Mr.
Way out of line.
Regular order.
That's okay. But it's okay, right?
That is not how it goes.
It's okay, right?
You hold yourself accountable before you talk about
Hold
Washington,
myself
D.C.
accountable.
Washington, D.C.
Hold your own self accountable. How about that? Hold your own self
trying,
accountable. How about
Mr.
that?
That right there wasn't debate. It was delusion colliding with discipline. While Rashida Tlaib was shouting about beauty and monuments, Byron Donalds was focused on something far less poetic, reality. She called accountability fascism, he called it math. And when she refused to yield, refused to answer, and refused to face facts, Donalds stayed calm, collected, and devastatingly precise. Because in that moment, it wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a clash of philosophies. One side wants to feel good, the other side wants to fix what's broken. And when you stack feelings against facts, the facts always win.
Thank you, Chairman. This is my third term on the Oversight Committee. We've been talking about illegal immigration and oversight the entire time. I remember we had a group of this committee that went down to the El Paso section of the border. This was back in February, March of 2021. And during that time period, we were at one of the holding centers, and there were these buses that were coming to the detention facility, and they were picking up 30 kids, 50 kids at random, walking out of the facility. And when I went over to question the bus driver that was transporting these kids, border agents told me, as a member of Congress, that you're not allowed to question the bus driver. And of course, people knowing me, I didn't take no for an answer, and I repeated the question. And I was told that this bus of children was leaving El Paso and going to San Diego. And so what was occurring under the Biden administration is that they were busing unaccompanied minors all across the United States for one reason and one reason only. And that was because they did not want the press to see the pictures of kids in cages. They did not want to see our borders being overrun. They wanted to disperse that problem all through the United States. That is the reckless history of illegal immigration under Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. Mayor Johnston of Denver, you lamented earlier that there were 10 to 11 buses coming per day to your city. Did you ever talk to Joe Biden about why this was happening to your community?
Thank you, Congressman. I both reached out to Governor Abbott from Texas. He didn't respond, and I did.
Why would you reach out to Governor Abbott of Texas when it is Joe Biden, the former commander-in-chief, that opened up our borders? Why didn't you talk to him?
Well, our buses directly were being sent from Governor Abbott in Texas, so that was why we reached out to say we're happy to collaborate on a coordinated entry system. We understand no one state or no one city should bear the entire brunt of this, but let's collaborate. But I did.
So I'm glad you said that, because that brings me to my next point. Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis, when they started moving illegal aliens out of their states who were bearing the brunt of what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were doing, and they've sent them to Denver, they sent them to Chicago, they sent them to New York, they sent them to Martha's Vineyard. The reason why they did that is because you four could hide behind the realities of illegal immigration on border towns all through our country and on cities and states who did not want to see illegal immigration, but did not have the political representation to go to the White House. And only when it showed up on your doorstep did you get upset. Mayor Johnston, coming back to you, how much did your city spend on illegal immigration? Do you have a round number?
Over the last couple of years on all newcomers, whatever their status was, it's around $79 million since 2022.
79 million. Mayor Johnson, Chicago. How much has the city of Chicago spent on illegal immigration?
If you're referring to the 2022 up to 2024 of the buses coming from Texas, roughly the same percentage of the state of Texas, about 1% of our overall budget.
What is that? Because we don't have the city's budget in front of me. Numbers.
It's 1%, and if you want the actual calculation, we can make sure someone.
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you.
It's 1% of the overall budget over the
All
last
right, that's
4
why
years,
you're a failing
which
mayor.
is the
Mayor
same
Adams,
number that
how
was
much did the
sent
city
from
of
us
New
from
York
the
actually
state
spend
of
on
Texas.
illegal immigration? Mayor Johnson, I already asked you. You don't have a hard number, and if you don't have a hard number, you're not running your city well. Mayor Adams, how much did the city of New York actually spend on illegal immigration?
$6.9 billion of taxpayers' dollars.
$6.9 billion of taxpayer money on a problem that was fostered on the American people. Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering city
You don't
services,
ask
so
about
we
how
don't
much
have
money
that
the city
number.
of Boston has spent on illegal immigration?
We
Are you
don't
out of your
distinguish
mind?
between immigration status.
Do you
as
manage
part
your
of our
budget
city
or not,
policies.
Mayor Wu?
That is how we keep
Mayor
our city
Wu,
safe.
do you manage
we
your
have
budget or
the
not?
numbers to prove it. I manage my budget. I have a AAA bond rating dating back 10 years.
So
for
to the city of Boston,
budget.
just understand that your mayor does not care how much of your resources she has spent on people who are not citizens
The city
of
of Boston
the city of
is
Boston.
sick of having
I'm reclaiming
people
my
outside
time.
Boston
Mr.
telling
Bear,
us what
Mr.
we
Bear, I have
need.
a question for you because I understand Cato's perspective when it comes to illegal immigration. I understand that the Cato Institute for a long time has had a standard of actually having open immigration into the United States. Generally speaking, I don't want to get into specifics.
We support legal immigration. We want immigration to be legal.
So let me ask you this question, because one of the great libertarians of the modern era, Milton Friedman, famously said, you can either have open borders or a welfare state, but you have to choose. Mr. Beer, what do you choose?
Milton Friedman said he wanted to allow illegal immigration to continue. I disagree with Milton Friedman's position on that. We should have legal immigration and build a wall around the welfare state, not around the country. That's in the best interest of taxpayers.
And I would argue that under the current system where you have sanctuary cities popping up, it is not possible to build that wall. So America
can.
has to
Absolutely you
choose,
can.
Mr. Beer, you're done. America has to choose between securing our nation or protecting the taxpayer. I choose secure the nation. I yield back.
What we just witnessed wasn't a shouting match. It was a mirror held up to the dysfunction that defines modern politics. It wasn't about one clip or one clash. It was about two completely different ideas of what leadership looks like. Rashida Tlaib represents a style of politics built on sound bites, outrage, and emotional theater. She talks about monuments and feelings, but when it comes time to talk about measurable results, the silence is deafening. And then you have Byron Donalds, calm, unshaken, armed with numbers and discipline. He doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't have to. When you have the facts, you don't shout, you wait. And that's exactly what made this exchange so powerful. Every time Tlaib doubled down on her emotional appeal, Donalds countered with evidence. Every time she framed criticism as fascism, he turned it back to accountability. It's the difference between people who perform politics and people who practice it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of leaders today aren't in Washington to govern. They're there to go viral. They measure success not by results, but by applause. And that's why this moment hits such a nerve. Because Byron Donalds reminded everyone watching that politics doesn't have to be a performance. It can still be a profession. When he asked the mayors how much taxpayer money had been spent, the room shifted. It wasn't just a question, it was a test. And one by one, they stumbled. No figures, no accountability, just vague platitudes and excuses. That's when the laughter started, not because it was funny, but because it was revealing. The moment real oversight appeared, the entire illusion cracked. And that's why this exchange matters. Because underneath the noise, this was about something deeper, the fight for competence. The idea that leadership isn't about how passionately you speak, but how precisely you think. Tlaib was performing passion, Donalds was demonstrating principle. One is built for the camera, the other is built for consequence. When Byron Donalds said, "That's why you're a failing mayor," it wasn't an insult, it was a diagnosis. He exposed what happens when ideology takes priority over infrastructure, when slogans take priority over solvency, and when loyalty to a narrative replaces loyalty to the nation. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. And sometimes clarity hurts. Because when a city spends billions on sanctuary programs that don't work while citizens struggle to afford rent, that's not compassion, that's negligence disguised as virtue. And Donalds wasn't afraid to say it. He didn't mock, he didn't grandstand, he just drew a line between truth and theater, and the reaction said everything. This is the danger of confusing activism with leadership. One seeks visibility, the other seeks responsibility. When Rashida Tlaib shouted about fascism and defamation, she wasn't debating policy, she was protecting a worldview. A worldview where every problem is emotional, every disagreement is oppression, and every challenge is personal. But the real world doesn't bend to emotion, it bends to truth. And when that truth shows up in a congressional hearing, it doesn't care how loud the opposition gets. Byron Donalds didn't win because he was clever. He won because he was clear. He reminded everyone that reality still matters, even in a room full of politics. He reminded us that fiscal responsibility isn't cruelty, it's respect. Respect for the people who pay the taxes, follow the laws, and still expect results. And that's what makes this moment more than just viral. It makes it symbolic. Because this wasn't just Rashida Tlaib getting flustered. It was every politician who's ever hidden behind slogans suddenly realizing that slogans don't add up on a balance sheet. It was every activist whose confused empathy for economics suddenly confronted with the cold arithmetic of consequence. And here's the irony, Tlaib accused Donalds of fascism for asking questions. But in reality, accountability is the most democratic act there is. It's the act of saying, show us the receipts, prove it, let the people see. And that's why hearings like this matter. They remind us that democracy doesn't survive on outrage, it survives on oversight. Because power without scrutiny is corruption waiting to happen. So, what do we take away from this? That leadership isn't measured by volume, but by vision. That shouting about injustice means nothing if you can't manage the budget that funds the solutions. And that, in the end, the loudest voice in the room isn't the one that wins, it's the one that tells the truth. Rashida Tlaib brought passion, Byron Donalds brought proof, and in the arena of public service, proof always wins. So remember this moment, when not for the chaos, not for the laughter, but for the clarity. Because when emotion runs out, truth remains standing. And if that truth makes people uncomfortable, maybe it's supposed to. Stay alert, stay aware, and if you're tired of the noise drowning out the facts, stick around. Because this, right here, is what holding power accountable looks like. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.